Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another video. And we have finally made it. Tomorrow is election day, and I thought I would make one final prediction for the Senate, and for the governors, and for the presidency. And so I'm going to make two videos. This is going to be the Senate and governor video, and the president video is going to go up half an hour after this one. And so if you want to see that, subscribe or just wait around and find that video when it's uploaded. But so I'm going to do the Senate and the governors first. So going west to east, I'm going to start with Alaska. And Alaska, I'm saying, is a likely Republican state. The incumbent Dan Sullivan is running for reelection, and it was kind of close at one point, but I don't think it's really close anymore. And Alaska is pretty reliably Republican on the presidential level, and so I think Alaska's probably going to go red in the Senate by a likely margin. In Montana, the incumbent Republican Senator Steve Daines is running for re-election against the incumbent Democratic Governor Steve Bullock. And although it's shaping up to be a pretty close election, as statewide elections in Montana typically are, it looks like Steve Daines is probably going to win. He's been leading in the polls, and he's kind of recovered from this rough part of his campaign. And so I do think Montana is going to be a lean Republican state this cycle. In the state of Arizona, Martha McSally is running for election to a full term after she's been appointed to this seat after the death of John McCain. And she actually ran for Senate in Arizona 2 years ago, but lost to Kirsten Sinema, who she's serving with right now. And Mark Kelly's running against her now. He's the Democrat, and he's been leading in every poll, and he's just a lot more popular than she is. And even though on the presidential level it's going to be a lot more of a close race, I do think it's going to be a lean Democrat state in the Senate level, and Mark Kelly will become senator in January. As for Colorado, incumbent Republican Senator Cory Gardner is running for re-election against the former governor John Hickenlooper. And Hickenlooper was a very popular governor, and Cory Gardner is just in an unfortunate situation for his campaign because Colorado has just been rapidly trending left. And he only really won in 2014 by a fluke. He won by like 1%, and it was a Republican wave year. And so it was really a miracle that he was elected in the first place. And I'm going to be very surprised if he even comes close to winning this election. I feel like John Hickenlooper is going to win probably by like 8 or 9 points. And so I do think Colorado is going to be a likely blue state this cycle. In the state of Kansas, Barbara Bollier did seem like she had a chance of winning this seat when the Republican primary was contested. But when Chris Kobach lost and Roger Marshall won the primary, it's just been looking better for the Republicans in this seat ever since. And her leads in the polls just turned into losses in the polls. And so the Republicans are ahead. And I feel like they're probably going to win this seat by about 5 points. So I'm categorizing it as a lean state. The state of Texas in this election has been shaping up to be kind of a close state, but recently it's been seeming more safe for the Republicans on both the Senate and presidential level. And so I do think John Cornyn's going to win re-election by a likely margin, probably by around 8 to 10 points. And I think it's going to be closer on the presidential level, but John Cornyn's pretty popular, and I do think he's going to win the seat pretty easily. The state of Minnesota has been shaping up to be a pretty close state this election, probably closer than anyone thought. But I do still think the Democrat is going to win. Incumbent Tina Smith, she's going to win re-election. She was elected in a special election 2 years ago, and I do think she's going to win a full term this election. The Iowa Senate race looked like it was getting pretty close, and Joni Ernst was losing a lot of the polls to Teresa Greenfield. But Trump looks like he's going to win Iowa by a pretty big margin. And he's been campaigning there, so the down ballot Republican votes are probably going to be higher, and so I think Trump's going to be able to carry Joni Ernst over the finish line, and so I think Iowa's probably going to be a lean state. The state of Mississippi is generally not a very close state. It usually goes solidly red, but this is a rematch of 2 years ago in the special election in Mississippi. Incumbent Cindy Hyde Smith beat Mike Espy by about 7 points last time, and I think she's going to beat him by a larger margin this time. But I do still think it's going to be under 12%, so I'm categorizing it as a likely Republican state. pretty similarly in Alabama, incumbent Democrat Doug Jones won a 2017 special election very narrowly by only a point. And it's because his opponent was accused of being a pedophile. And so that was a very odd case. And the stars aligned pretty much perfectly for a Democrat to be elected in Alabama. And I really don't think that's going to happen again. Jones does have the incumbency advantage, but I really don't think that's enough in a state like Alabama, which is extremely red, especially in a presidential election year. And so I think it could go under 12 points. So I'm going to put it as a likely Republican state. Michigan's Senate election has shaped up to be a much closer election than anyone really thought it was going to be from the beginning, because John James in 2018 challenged Democratic incumbent Debbie Stabenow, and he lost by about 6 points. But it was in a Democratic wave year, and she only won by 6 points in Michigan, which was pretty incredible that a Republican got that close. And so a lot of Republicans had hoped that maybe he'd be able to flip this seat this year. And for a while, he was really behind in the polls, but recently he's been coming back in the polls, and he's been ahead in some polls. But I don't think that he's going to win. I think he's going to very narrowly lose Michigan. So I think Michigan is going to be tilt Democratic this cycle. It's going to be extremely close, but I do think incumbent Gary Peters is going to win just because of that incumbency advantage. Even though he's one of the less known senators in this country, I do think he is probably going to win by a very, very tiny margin, much narrower than his over 10-point win back in 2014. Mitch McConnell's seat in the state of Kentucky is one that Democrats are always hoping that they might be able to grab, but have never been able to. And although they're really outspending McConnell in Kentucky right now, Kentucky's just such a red state, and it's a presidential election year. And so down ballot Republican votes in Kentucky are probably going to be pretty strong. And so I doubt that McConnell is in really any danger of losing his seat. It could probably get relatively close, but I still think he's probably going to win it by about 10 points. In the state of Georgia, there are two elections, one special election. And so the first one is incumbent David Perdue versus Jon Ossoff. And it's looking like it's going to be pretty close, but I do think David Perdue is going to be able to get the victory very narrowly, probably by a little over 2 points. And so I'm making it a lean state just because Trump has been campaigning there pretty heavily for the Senate. And so I do think Perdue's probably going to win this pretty narrowly. And in the special election, it's probably going to go to a runoff, which will be in December. But I think it's pretty likely that a Republican, either Loeffler or her opponent, is going to win. And so I'm making this also a lean state because I think the margin's probably going to be pretty close, maybe like 5 points or so in the runoff. But I do think it's very likely that a Republican is going to make it to the runoff and then subsequently win. Lindsey Graham's seat in South Carolina was never really in contention in my mind until recently when polling had him very close. And it's never really had his challenger up, but it probably is going to get pretty close and a lot closer than anyone really thought it would at the beginning of this cycle. But I do still think it's going to be a lean state for Lindsey Graham. I think he's going to keep his seat. I feel like this is kind of fool's gold for Democrats. Like they kind of feel like they have a grasp on it, but I feel like they don't actually have that much of a chance here. And I don't think they should be really focusing their resources on it when they should be trying to grab North Carolina and Maine and keeping Michigan and grabbing Iowa. And so, the election's tomorrow. I think they kind of wasted their money on South Carolina. I feel like they should have tried to keep states elsewhere and tried to expand. But I do think Lindsey Graham's going to win South Carolina. The state of North Carolina is a state I had going blue for a long time, just because Tom Tillis was pretty unpopular, and he was down in the polls, and it looked like he was going to lose. But then his challenger, Cal Cunningham, had a sexting scandal, and his campaign was a lot based on decency, and that just made his reputation pretty bad. And so I think he lost probably some support from that, just because his campaign on decency was plagued with this scandal. And so I do think Tillis is going to win very narrowly. this is one that I'm very uncertain about, and I would not be surprised at all if Tillis still lost. But I just think because of that scandal, that Tillis is probably going to be able to eke out a win, probably by less than a percentage point. Um, but I really would not be surprised either way how this race goes. In the state of New Hampshire, I toyed with making this a safe state, but I think Shaheen's probably going to win by around 10 points just because I think New Hampshire's going to get relatively close in the presidential election. And so if it gets that close, it could drag the Senate race a little bit to the right. But I don't think Shaheen's really in any danger of losing re-election at all. This is probably a seat that Republicans had hoped they could grab, but I don't think it's gonna go anywhere close to going red. Finally, in the state of Maine, Susan Collins is running for re-election. She's a Republican, and she did not vote to confirm Amy Coney Barrett. I think that was to try and save her re-election bid, but I don't think it worked. I think the ranked choice voting system they have in Maine kind of screwed her campaign over. And so they're probably not saying poggers right now. She's probably going to lose by around the lean margin. And yeah, so I think this is probably going to be the final Senate. 51 Republicans to 49 Democrats. Republicans are going to keep their majority, but they're going to lose 2 seats. So this is a net gain of 2 for Democrats. And it's, if Trump wins again, it's going to make things a lot harder for him with Mitt Romney in Utah and Lisa Murkowski in Alaska and other Republican senators that don't really get along with him. And if Biden wins, then it's probably not going to be, very bad for him because of those Republican senators that are more in the center that would be willing to cross the aisle. So even though he'd have like a split administration because of the Republican Congress, he'd probably be able to still get a lot done. And so this very narrow Republican majority probably doesn't mean all that much. It's probably going to be difficult for either president to get things done with such a narrow majority there. And so this is my final prediction for the Senate, and now I'm going to do the governors. The governor races are much easier to predict just because polling does not have them really anywhere near as close. And so I'm going to start with Montana. And Montana's going to be a little bit closer than you'd think, just like in the Senate, because on the statewide level, it's not as safe Republican as it is on the presidential level. But I think Greg Gianforte is going to win pretty narrowly, but like probably by around 4 points. And so that's going to be a flip. The current governor, like I said, is running for Senate against the incumbent Republican. And so I think this seat's going to flip to the Republicans. In Missouri, incumbent Republican Governor Mike Parsons is running for another term. And although I think this state is very solidly red on the presidential level, I think it's going to be a likely red state on the governor level, just because the polls are a little bit closer. But Missouri, it's pretty reliably red just in general now. It used to be a swing state. It's not anymore. And so I think Missouri is going to elect its Republican governor again. I also think the state of Vermont is going to elect its Republican governor again by a likely margin. Vermont and New Hampshire are states you probably wouldn't expect to elect Republican governors, but they've got pretty liberal Republicans up here. And so they generally tend to elect Republicans to their governor offices while simultaneously voting for Democrats in presidential elections. And honestly, I don't understand it that much, but that's just kind of what happens. And so I think that's going to happen again. I think both these states are going to vote for Republicans, but also vote for Democrats on the presidential level. Finally, in the state of North Carolina, incumbent Governor Roy Cooper is running for re-election, and he won by a very large margin last time, and I think he's probably going to win by maybe a little more narrow margin, but probably still by around 7 points. And so this is my final governor's map, and that concludes the video. Republican majority in the Senate. Republicans will hold majority of the states, and so the presidential election prediction will be up at 7:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, or Eastern Daylight Time, excuse me. And so please stay tuned for that and subscribe if you like this video. And please comment and tell me what you think is going to happen and what you think of my prediction. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you guys later.